Right, let's try that again. Right, camera's working fine. Everyone hear me okay? Hey Andrew, how are you? Just wait for a few more people to join before I get started. Right, so the way I'm going to try and do this is I've got my phone here, obviously, and then I've got my laptop in front of me, just so it's a little bit easier to manage the comments and questions that come in rather than having to keep scrolling up. It says I'm upside down. Hey Bashar, how are you? Haven't spoke to you in ages. Yes, I think it is working. We're off. We've started, we're good. So just give it a few more minutes to let some more people join. But while we're waiting, essentially there's no real format to this. It's just a weekly update to let you guys know what I'm working on, any new products, any builds, some general news, anything interesting that relates to airsoft sniping, whether that's anything other creators are doing, any new parts that have come out, or any just general news that I think is interesting, or even if I've stumbled across something like a blog post or something on the forum that I think is interesting. This will just be an informal catch-up, really. I want to be able to engage with the audience and answer any questions. So, comments-wise, it's looking like we're all on. Bashar, how's the wrist? Last time we spoke, I think it was still on the mend. So as I said, there's no real format. France. Yes, France was an incredible trip. When was it? Must have been about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I don't know how to describe it beyond it was just amazing. The site was something else. There's nothing here in the UK that even comes close to it. I mean, you're literally up a mountain in an old fort, which I think I said World War I in my blog, but someone actually corrected me and said it's actually earlier, it's the late 1800s. But it's crazy, it was good. The people were brilliant as well. The sportsmanship there was absolutely brilliant. Everyone was there to have fun, everyone took it as seriously as it needed to be taken. But it was just great. I mean, I went over with the Sniper Ops guys, so you had Terry, Paul, James Bailey, so Kicking Mustang, Kenny, Sneaky Blinder as well, and Mark Hutchins. And it was like the road trip itself was quite funny, but when we got there, just the welcome we got from all the other players was great. The atmosphere was outstanding, and even though the weather wasn't the best, especially on the Saturday, it was just awesome to play in. It was such an unusual terrain. It was really challenging. There was no sort of straight walks anywhere. Everything was, you've got to watch your foot, and you're going to slip off that, you're going to fall down that, you're going to put your foot down there, you're going to slip off a ladder. It was great. I think we're going to go again at some point. I think there's one called Operation Oblivion 3 next year in May. And if Sasha joins, he's the organiser for that, so correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it was good. I mean, obviously I wrote the blog post on France, which took me ages to do. It was really hard to put down and write just how good of an event it was. But yeah, we did well. Our team won. I got to meet Barry from Skirm Shop in person. He's a right laugh, really nice guy. Beyond customer service for his website, as just a general person and a fellow skirmisher, he's a great laugh. Met Clean Shot as well. Met him in person. Me and him paired up quite a lot on the Sunday. It was just so good. I'm still happy that I went. Like, the excitement's still there every time I talk about it. I'm like, I remember that was brilliant. That part was good, and that shot was great, and it was just such an incredible experience, and I'd go every weekend if I could. And it wasn't that expensive either. I think £250 all in, and that was the Eurotunnel, hotel on the Sunday, and all food and spending money and the ticket for the event. It was brilliant. What else? So as I said, there's no real format. Something I did want to pick up on though, more of the tech side, is something that it seems to have happened a lot recently. And I keep seeing it. I've seen it on a few pages now, and from my own experience, I've done a few builds recently and I've had the exact same issue pop up. But essentially, what it is, and it's mainly on the 45-degree triggers that I've seen this, but this, try and get that camera up. So people are having a problem where they're racking the bolt and the handle won't go down. So they can cock it fine, the bolt returns fine, but you just can't, so from this point you can't lock it down. And it seems to be this little safety sear here. And what happens is, especially with some of the aftermarket bolts, like I had it happen with the Action Army Teflon bolt and the Laylax as well, that the cutout on the back of the bolt where this safety sear usually sits, so when you've cocked the bolt forward, this should pop up, or pop down, get squashed down, sorry, so that you can turn the bolt handle down, and then this returns, and then it allows you to pull the trigger. But when this is down, it blocks the trigger from dropping. So if I push it down, the trigger goes back, but not enough to release the sear. Whereas when it's up, you can put it all the way back and the sear will drop. For me personally, this, just out of time, I've just started taking this out. If I'm ever doing a build with a 45 degree, I'll just whip this straight out if I'm updating the sears, upgrading the sears, sorry. It's just, I don't know what they've changed. I don't know whether someone's copied someone who's done something wrong with this in terms of QC or sizing, but it just seems to be a repetitive issue. The only thing this really stops you from doing is when you've racked it, it stops you from being able to fire the gun with the bolt handle still sort of this way. Common sense, guys. If you're using these rifles, which you are, the majority of you are going to be using these at 2.3 joules plus, more than that if you're in mainland Europe. So just you can remove this, but be very conscious that even though the bolt handle's up and previously you couldn't shoot, now you can. But that's something I wanted to address quickly, just because I've seen it on a few pages and I myself have had it happen to me a few times. And on the topic of triggers, I'm just conscious I'm not seeing many comments come up on it, so I'm not sure if no one's asking anything. But triggers in general, I've got a couple in front of me, and I wanted to just do some quick comparisons and quick notes on them. Springer Custom Works, who make hands down even, the best trigger in my opinion, and the only one I currently use in my builds, have released a V9 trigger. With the V8 they made some changes, and some of the changes weren't particularly well received. I know that I certainly had some reservations about some of the changes that they made, and I actually spoke to them ahead of them doing the V9 and said, actually guys, I've got some feedback for you, just some tweaks and changes if you're going to do another version. But we've got a few people in, so I'll go ahead. So I've got the V8 here first. This isn't the budget, this is just the normal, the standard V8 trigger. So let's see, let's have a look. So Andrew, you've got an Airsoft Pro. Airsoft Pro they're durable, like they rarely break in terms of having the sear snap or the spring guide stop a snap. But for me, they just do not give a nice bolt pull, just because of the way they're designed. Just everything in them is it just doesn't feel refined. They're very rough. That's on the pull. They're significantly rougher than most other 90-degree triggers, and even on the return, just because of the way that the spring guide sits in some of the aftermarket cylinders, they just don't work very well for me. If you're on a really, really tight budget and you're not too bothered about that bolt pull, they're fine. They usually come with a piston and a spring guide, so value for money, that they're good, they're there. For what you spend, you get everything you need to run at 500 FPS. I wouldn't say it's certainly not in the top 5 setups for what you should be running if you're going to be at the 500 FPS mark. What else? Rob Hurst has said, what's the best value for money trigger? I would say at the moment it would be the budget triggers that Springer Custom does. Functionality wise, there's only a few small differences between the sort of the pro version or the standard version and the budget, and that is there's no safety and you can't adjust the trigger pull or the trigger weight. But otherwise the materials used are pretty much the same, I think, and the way they function. I've built probably about 5 or 6 rifles in the last 6 months where someone's not had the budget to stretch to the standard version of ours for the budget, and they've been fine. There's no failures on them at all. I've had Springer Custom works for a number of years. I think as early as V4, maybe V5, back on when he was selling on the Airsoft Sniper forums. And yeah, I think I sold the rifle that had that in, but I'd had that for years and it hadn't broke even. They are great triggers. But so as I said, I've got the V8 here, I've got the V9, and I've also got the ball trig. So I'll cover off a few starting points. So on the standard V8, which when you get it, they come boxed like this with some pack and foam inside. Tells you what the trigger is, and I think the QR code actually takes you to a brief installation video. You'll get a little note in there about the safety lever, and then inside the box you'll have your trigger, spring guide stopper, and some specific screws which you need to use, and some crush rings with this trigger. So these are the V8s that are currently out, and a lot of retailers have still got these. Just on camera you can see the quality of these items. It's a refined trigger, like everything about it has been thought about. They look great, everything is nice and smooth. Trigger's very light. And yeah, they just work really well. The only niggles that I've got with the V8 over the previous V7 and the now V9, and I'll just get it out to show you, is on your spring guide stopper, which you install at the end once you've got everything in. There used to be, and there is now, a screw that goes here that fixes this in place like this, so it has no movement whatsoever, and that helps give a brilliant smooth bolt pull because there's no room for the spring guide to move up, down, left or right. It is fixed there. With the V8, this doesn't come with a screw or a threading, and what that means is if you're not using a long spring, so if you're using a shorter, fatter spring, it doesn't give enough pressure on this to keep it in the locked position, and they pop out. Or if you're using a heavy piston, the force and the vibrations of the bolt going forward, or the piston going forward, sorry, causes these to pop out the bottom. And it's not the end of the world. A simple fix is where your trigger guard would usually be, which sort of follows this shape. Under here, just put a bit of packing foam, or something denser than packing foam, sorry, and that way it'll keep it pushed up. Otherwise, that's my only niggle really. Everything else works well with them. They're consistent. They've got a light pull. They're nigh on indestructible. I've had rifles at 650 that I've ran for ages, purely for just practicing and target shooting, as opposed to obviously skirmishing it. But they work very well, and in my opinion, certainly the best triggers out there at the moment. What else have we got? Would I say it's better? Yes. I mean, depending on if you're using a stock 45-degree setup, so something like this, which is out of Cyma CM701. Yeah, I mean, you can, and I think I've done a video, literally a 30-second video on YouTube showing one of these 45-degree setups with a really smooth bolt pull. It can be done. It's just you've got to work on making sure that everything is straight, everything is aligned, there's no wiggle, there's no nicks and burrs on this that's going to catch on the cylinder walls. It takes a lot more work, but it's a lot easier with a 90 degree. So if you have got an Airsoft Pro, use it until it breaks, or use it until you can afford to get something better, like a Springer Custom or a Laylax or an Action Army. Although at the moment I would say avoid Laylax. There's a lot of QC issues with near enough all of their parts. I've had triggers that have broke literally on the first cocking it the first time. I've had pistons where the guide rings have just come loose. I don't know what's going on over there, but there has been a lot of poor QC. Hi guys, hi David, hi Daniel, hi Anders. What's Anders saying? After reading your blog some time ago, I've opted for the A&K M24. After polishing the season cylinder, it's gotten pretty smooth. Yes! Now that is a rifle that I originally bought it from Bespoke Airsoft, and I think they've sold a number of them since I've done that blog post. For a cheap rifle, they are very, very good. They've got some odd things around barrel compatibility. You've got to do some work on the hop unit and the hop chamber arm, and chamber's a little bit smaller than a stock VSR chamber. But you can mod the arm with a BIC mod, same as you do to the VSR, and with very, very minor work. They're good rifles. I mean, they've got a lot of steel components in them, and you saw mine. You cock it, you drop it, and it just slams back home under its own weight. They are very, very good starter rifles, and for less than £200 you can upgrade a barrel, bucking, make some electrical tape barrel spacers, and just give it a clean and a polish, and they're good to go. They are pretty good rifles for the price. So the V8 trigger, as I said, is a good trigger. If you can get your hands on one, do it. And this one is the V9 prototype that Springer Custom Works have sent me. I have yet to install it. I've got about 5 rifles on order at the moment, which I'll be upgrading and then selling, essentially. They'll be for customer builds. They'll be on my blog, and each rifle I'll do a video on YouTube basically showing what internals I've done, what internals I've put in it, and what work I've done. But for the V9 trigger, very, very similar design. The edges on the spring guide stopper, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. They've got multiple faces rather than just being hard rectangle shapes. And the sear is slightly narrowed and beveled, or radiused, sorry, all the way around. And that was one of the changes that I suggested when I was using the Relicu VSR receiver. What was happening is the trigger was ever so slightly sitting a mil to the left. I think it was left. It was essentially, it was sitting a mil off, and what that meant is the sharp edges were catching on the cylinder. So on the pull it was fine, but on the return I could hear it ever so slightly grate, and I could get little tiny metal filings in the trigger unit, and it just wasn't as smooth as I like to. Well, you've seen it, as I like to get my rifles. So I suggested that the edges are beveled and radiused rather than having sharp angles, and make the sear so it's more tapered up as opposed to going straight up and across, sort of tapering it like that and then across. And they've brought back the retaining screw for the spring guide stopper, which means there's next to no movement in this, which without a doubt in my mind is going to give an absolutely brilliant bolt pull. What else has changed? On the V8, the spring for the sear sat here at the back, and it was a small spring, and it can sometimes slip off with a little ledge in there. With the new design, the springs sit here and at the front, and it gives a nice consistent return and a very, very light trigger pull. Brilliant trigger. I'm looking forward to putting it in one of the rifles I'm getting, which is a handful of Cyma CM701s. And the final trigger, just going through some comments. Let's have a look. Bashar said, Dan, I think a couple of weeks ago you posted a topic about dropping R-hops. What's your impression of these R-hops so far? What's the lifespan of it? I haven't had mine yet. Silent Sniper is sending me a couple for my SRS. But speaking to Faceless Sniper, who also uses these patches, they're very, very good and a nice alternative to the Maple Leaf. And the problem with our hops is, if you can do them and do them right, which I'd say less than 1 in 10 people can do, they work very, very well. But for the time and effort, the newer Maple Leaf buckings with a Skis concave nub work very, very well. The results for me personally have been extremely good. In my TAC 300, which I've got down by the side of me, and my personal VSR, my internally suppressed VSR, both run Maple Leaf Autobots with Skis concave nub brilliantly. But I'm looking forward to the R-Hop. I'm terrible at them. My shaky hands are absolutely crap for trying to cut them, and I end up just cutting my fingers, so the fact that someone has made a drop-in is absolutely brilliant. Glenn has asked, what are my thoughts on the Ares DSR-1? The old ones were terrible for leaking. They had air leaks everywhere and the magazines were just crap. But I think S&T have done a V2 DSR, which looks promising. I might pick one up at some point. I'm very much like gas sniper rifles. Obviously I've got a Tanaka myself, and I've also got a K98 by PPS. Which is actually something I wanted to talk about shortly, because it's just an amazing rifle. Nigh impossible to get, but if you're a World War II reenactor, they are just outstanding. Paul Stone says, the smoothest pull I saw was on 45, or on 90 I didn't see. Why, actually, if you turned the rifle with the butt up, the bolt was going by itself. Yes, so my internally suppressed VSR, cock it, turn it, and it falls. That is upstairs. But Paul, if you do want to see it, I can run up and get it in a second. Adam says, hi, the ANK M24 is a very good rifle indeed, but have one big problem. The stock trigger box have a very hard trigger pull. They do. That is the downfall. I mean, it is a cheaper rifle, but in terms of performance for the money you pay and the time you put into them, they're very good for that reason. The trigger boxes are very hard, but they're very, very strong as well. So it's a trade-off, and again, you've got to look at what you're spending. You're getting something that might not get that 90 to 100 metre range and the consistency of a VSR or an SRS, but for the price, you're going to comfortably hit 8 metres all day long, at a 2.3 dual limit, that is. Evening, Lee, how are you? Lee Avis says, Tanaka is next on my list. Good luck. The only Tanakas worth getting are the pre-bands. And they're not made anymore. You cannot get them unless you're looking on obscure forums. They're nigh on impossible to get, and which is a shame because they are outstanding rifles. I think most of the Sniper Ops guys have got one. I've got a Tanaka. It was an M700, but I've just dropped it into a M40 Woodstock. Kicking Mustang's got an M40a3, an old Chrome Hunter edition, which is a beautiful rifle. Shoots very, very well. Kenny's got a Tanaka being built by me, which is literally on my bench behind me, that I'll be working on shortly. He's had a small issue where he bought it second hand, and it's 99% complete. It comes with some really good parts. It came with the Spartan hop chamber, which is one of the must-have upgrades for the Tanaka, because it allows the use of VSR buckings and barrels, and it comes with a rectangle nub, which just works flawlessly with 9 balls and modified buckings. But he didn't have that nub, and I've been trying my hand at doing some 3D designing on like Tinkercad and things like that, and I actually have made some 3D printed M700 nubs specifically for the Spartan chamber, so he'll be having one of my V nubs in there. But what I have done is, in my Tanaka, I wanted to give a go with the Maple Leaf Autobot buckings and a Crazy Jet barrel. So I've put a Crazy Jet in, I've put an Autobot bucking in, and instead of the standard flat rectangle nub, which pushes down and only sort of uses the front third of the patch, I've actually designed a nub which takes up the entire space of the Spartan chamber and window, which is radius. So it's essentially a concave plastic nub that drops in, which allows the use of Maple Leaf buckings in the Tanaka. They're actually going to be on my blog for sale soon. I've just got a few little tweaks to the design. I mean, they work as they are. You have to do a bit of sanding, but my latest design, I've done some changes so they just drop in. but I've had very promising results with it. Literally flat shots to 90 metres at 460 FPS, which on my Tanaka is about 2.2, 2.3 joules. And it's just a laser. I'm really excited to get a few Tanaka users to test them for me. What else have we got? Lee, yeah, speaking of SRSs, I've got an air brake piston in mind that I made, which is something that I'll be potentially releasing soon. I've sent it a few people, some videos of how quiet mine is and how it works in terms of joule creeping, but allowing the use of a weaker spring but still retaining very high joules. Not something I'm ready to show yet. Just because I've had a few retailers that have run with some ideas that I've had, so for that reason I'm keeping a little bit quieter about things. I haven't been to Section 8, although that's the one in Scotland, isn't it, where Scout the Doggy does his videos. I am interested in going up there at some point. It does look like an interesting site. What other comments have we had? Paul X says, good luck with your live videos. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think they're going well. I mean, I suppose you guys will have to let me know if there's any improvements or anything else you want to hear or see on these videos. But I just thought it'd be good to have an informal catch up around just stuff I'm doing and have a bit more of an interaction. It's all good and well posting something where you guys are going to go off and read it, but obviously sometimes people don't want to send a message. They haven't got the time. They want to just jump on something and have a quick chat. And I think live chats are a brilliant way to do that. I mean, I'm always interested in hearing what people have got to say. And I love hearing what other people are doing with their rifles as well. How do you explain that sometimes the BB leaves the barrel a little bit to the right of my scope cross, but flying straight? Well, if you're shooting the rifle, and the easiest way to check this, you shoot at something with a dark background so you can see the BB, and don't use the scope. Just eyeball it down the top of the rail and shoot. If it's going straight or if it's curving, then you're canting. But if it's going straight, then it's simply your scope that needs to just be aligned, which, if memory serves, some scopes are backwards, but usually you turn the scope into the BB. So if you're shooting and the BB's going right, then you want to turn your scope right, so that your right turret clockwise usually, just to line it up. If it's hooking right though, that's generally because you're holding the rifle canted like this or this. Easiest way to check that is use the compass app on your phone to get the spirit level. Rest your rifle on a flat surface, and then put your scope mount rings on and put your phone on top of the rings and make sure it's still level. And then put your scope on and put the phone on top of the cap, the top cap, and make sure that's level. And then try and test it again. Or Paul Smith or Smithy Sniper. Even easier, if your scope has a flat bottom, which I'll show you. So, for those who are interested, this is the prototype TAC 300 that I built, that I had from, well, I say built, Airsoft Custom, Anti-Sniper Custom Works in Russia sent me the prototype stock that I've been working on. But if you've got a scope like this where it's flat, if your rail is level, then put a ruler under, and this is from Paul Smith, brilliant, really simple, surprised no one had thought of it before, but put a ruler in and turn it, and that'll keep both of these flat. Let's say, I think Jason and a few of the Sniper Ops guys were talking about going to Section 8 at some point. Adam says there's an easy way to fix the issue on ANK M24. You can put just one screw into the trigger box to adjust trigger pull, and it works very well. Yeah, I think someone on one of the forums did something like that. Graham, hello, how are you? Glad you can make it. So while I'm waiting for some more people to join, and seems we're about halfway through now, just to show you some things that I'm working on. And beside my parts and stuff that I'm doing, just some rifles that I'm working on. So a gentleman wanted a L96 built, the Well MBO1, reached out to me, said I want a rifle, it's got to be 2.3 joules, I want to use 4.5s in it, I want it to be pretty quiet and I want it to be an L96. Absolutely fine, we had a chat and we decided on the Well MBO1. So I've got that rifle here, which is the one I did the bolt pull of. I've had it apart a few times just to make sure it's all working. So this is a Well MBO1, and internally it is running ZCI 6.02 type bore barrel. It's running Action Army Teflon cylinder, piston, spring guide, and an M150 spring. Action Army hop unit, Maple Leaf Monster 60 degree, and a Maple Leaf Omega nub. Stock trigger. The Wells are an odd rifle. Their stock triggers can last for thousands and thousands of rounds and years, or they can break very quickly. Customer was on a budget, so for the moment, everything and all the work I've done is on the stock trigger unit, and this is getting 2.25 joules on a 4.5. I have it written down somewhere, and 2.3 joules on a 0.4. Hitting out pretty flat to about 85 metres. Bolt pull is very, very smooth. The stock has been filled with foam. It's got a baffled suppressor on the end, and this is just one of my scopes I was using for testing. But all in all, it's a good rifle. I'm hoping he's happy with it. It should be with him for the weekend. I'll be happy to, well, I'll be excited to see what he thinks of it. I haven't worked on an MBO1 for a while. A lot of my work's been on a lot of VSR models at the moment, and a few KJWs. Gameplay. There's a lot of people doing gameplay, and a lot of them play more regularly than I do, and just have the money to buy that equipment. Not left-handed. Stupid phone's doing that mirror thing, so everything looks on the opposite side. But no, gameplay. I'm there to enjoy the games, and I think, and I was speaking to James about it actually, Kicking Mustang that is, about why it doesn't record its sniper ops very much, and it's because when you've got your cameras and things, you've got that added pressure, and for me, I don't want to do the gameplay. It's not my thing. I'm there to play. I like the teching side of it, and that's why I've decided to obviously try and do some videos, but on the tech side, as well as continue doing the sort of the more written blogs. I think people like that you can just go to my blog and read something, or go and have a video that complements it. Something someone did ask me, and I can't remember who it was, but they said they wanted to see my K98. So, if you've seen my Instagram, you'll know that a while ago I managed to get my hands on a PPS K98 gas rifle. I was after one for years, but they are just impossible to get anywhere, and luckily Chris from Gear Tech Custom, I asked him to keep an eye out for one, and then about a year later he just messaged me out the blue and said, Dan, you're after the K98 still? And I was like, yes, take my money, just whatever it is, just give it to me. And I've had it sat, and it's just such a nice rifle. I find myself just caressing it, just picking it up and caressing it. So here it is, real wood stock. Obviously I wrapped mine in burlap. I don't know whether you'll see it, but I did some wearing of the metalwork. I've got a replica ZF41 scope, I think it is. Someone World War II buff can correct me. I haven't got much room here. So I've done some wearing on the metal to make it look a bit better. It's got original trades on it. This is a Tanaka scope. I managed to find this from Wolf Armouries in London. Just randomly saw it on the website. Thought, no, they haven't got one of these in. But I thought, actually, I better check, because I'll kick myself if they have. And lo and behold, they actually did, and they did me a good deal on it. But this, it feels amazing. It shoots incredibly well. I took it to the Paint Fest at for the Fireball site up in Cannock, Birmingham, up near Bespoke Airsoft. And I fielded it briefly, and I was just tinkering with it, just because I've only got the one mag for it, and even at 330 FPS, this thing floats 4.5s out like no tomorrow. And it's just an absolute beaut to use. It just sounds beefy. I think if I can get hold of a few more mags for this, I might even use this at a Sniper Ops event. I've done no work to it beyond a strip, a clean, did some minor work on some of the seals around the bolt, the nozzle and where the mag sits. And I swapped the stock PPS silicon bucking out for a standard TM VSR bucking. It comes with a 605 brass barrel. I might swap it out for a Crazy Jet or a PDI 605. But even stock, these are beautiful rifles. They work very, very well. And they've got adjustable FPS, which is done by putting a Phillips screwdriver down the end of that nozzle and turning a screw either clockwise or anti-clockwise to increase or decrease the air volume and in turn the FPS. But if you can ever get your hands on one, do it. They look great, they perform well, and they are just really good showpieces. Is it skirmishable? Yes. I would say it's on par with a pre-ban Tanaka in terms of accuracy and range. The thing is a nail driver. The only reason I haven't skirmished with it properly is it's almost too nice. I'd use it at the Sniper Ops just because it won't get as hammered as much because you're using 20 rounds over 2 days. But it is beautiful, and yeah, you could definitely skirmish with it. So if any of you are World War enthusiasts, it's definitely an option. The hop unit is a weird design. I think you'd call it a cantilever. So there's a screw under the bottom of the, so where the mag sits, under here, you turn this screw to apply the hop. And the way it works is there's a bar that sits up here, and then you've got 2 bars that go up like that. That join a bar, it goes across, and there's a nub. And you basically, when you screw it, it pulls this down, so it's essentially a TDC hop. It takes VSR buckings and VSR barrels, 550mm VSR barrels. The nub itself is a metal cylinder, so you can't swap the nub out, so it's not going to be great with maple leaf buckings, but standard buckings like Modify, 9-ball, stock TMs, those sort of ones that just have the standard mound, work absolutely brilliantly on it. Lee is asking, excuse me, what do I mean by pre-ban? So with the Tanaka rifles, they used to have what's called PCS, which is a pressure control system. I think it's pressure control system, which is essentially a little dial that's in the bolt that you can flip the bolt over, loosen a screw, and then there's a thumb wheel that you can turn to increase or decrease FPS. But because of the way it worked, they're very consistent, and the mags that they came with were very consistent. And everything about them was just great. The QC was on point. The only upgrade you really needed to do was Spartan hop chamber, which allowed you to use the VSR buckings barrels, and it came with an extended nozzle, which meant basically better BB placement. And yeah, they're great. You can't get hold of them anymore unless they're second hand, but they're absolutely brilliant. Adam's asking, could you tell me which BBs you're using? Yes, I use longbows. I've used Outdoors and Tacticals Jeffs. Jeffs. I've used Jeffs, BLS, Longbow, ASG, BB Kings, which are a big no-no. And they're all good BBs. They're all pretty much the same. For me personally, I use longbows just because they do them in all the weights I want. They're readily available, and they've just had, for me personally, because I know a lot of people use the Jeffs, I've just found them to be absolutely brilliant. They're consistent in terms of weight and the dimensions. I haven't had any issues with them swelling. The prices are reasonable, so I stick with them. I've got my AGs, which I just use blasters in, really. Nothing fancy in those, but in my MK23s, all of my pistols actually, I use either .4s or .45s or .5s, and in all my rifles, including my VSR and K98, I use their 4.5s. For me, they're just brilliant. Paul Smith said, "Hi mate, I forgot about this, I need to subscribe." How dare you, Paul? That hurts me here, that does, Paul. I'm wounded. Bailey, how are you? Sven says, Jeff's longbow and BLS. Contrary to popular belief, they are not the same. They may all be coming from the same country, and maybe even the same factory, but when you actually do the swelling tests, like leave them in water, when you crack them open, and even on the surfaces, you can see that they're actually all different. For a while, I thought Jeffs and longbows were the same, and maybe the early batches might have been, but certainly the later ones, there are some differences. But again, I like longbow just because I've had good results with them. But prior to that, I was using Jeffs, and no issue. They're all good BBs. We're quite lucky nowadays. Before, getting anything above a .4 was nigh on impossible. But now we're actually saturated with them, and there are some good brands and some alternatives out there. Yes, as I said, Sven, I think they are from the same factory. It is just the materials or the ingredients list, shall we say, is probably slightly varied between them. What else? Rifles. The other trigger is the bull trig. I used this for a while in my TAC 300 actually, before I got another Springer custom trigger. It's got a lot of good features. I really like the packaging. I like the merchandising and the marketing of these. I like the logo, I like the box, everything's got a cutout, it's got its place. You get a patch, you get instructions, all your screws, everything's in there. And I like the look of them. They are nice triggers. They work well. It says it gives you a 50 FPS boost. For me personally, I got 30 FPS just between my Springer Custom V8, taking it out and installing this, changing nothing else. I did get a 30 FPS increase, and the reason being, and I'll try and show you on camera, it's a clever idea actually, and I've spoke to Bull Trig about it. So if I line the spring guides up, you'll notice the bull trig is here, and the Springer is here. So the bull trig sits further back, and what that means, if I swap around the other way, so the bull trig is this one. This sits further back, which basically means that you're drawing this spring back longer and compressing more of it, and that allows you to get a slightly higher FPS out of the same spring. It does give you a slightly, when you get right to the end of the bolt pull, you will notice it's a little bit tighter just because obviously the spring's pretty much maximum compression at that point. But it's got a smooth trigger, it's not adjustable, it's pretty smooth. Fitment wise, I've tried it in a few different receivers and it's not giving me any issues. Build quality is great, like everything looks and feels and performs as it should. The one gripe that I've got, which is why I currently won't use them, is the spring guide is fixed. Spring guide stopper. It's part of the unit. And what that means, you want to do any servicing, stripping, cleaning, you have to remove this every time. You have to physically take it off with these each time. And unfortunately, with the quality of receivers, even TM, it runs a very, very high risk of threading, of stripping the threads on your receiver. And for me, the minor performance gains aren't worth it. If you've got a Maple Leaf receiver, or the Action Army receiver, or even the VSR R receiver, it's fine. You've got bolts that you can swap out. So if you strip the bolt, or the nut, sorry, you take it out. Whereas with the stock receivers, you're screwing into the receiver, and if you misthread it, you're done. You're then going to have to retap these, tap your receiver. It's going to be a pain. So as good a design as they are in terms of performance, this being fixed, unfortunately, is a no-no for me. But they do give a smooth bolt pull as well. So they are an alternative, and I think they are a bit cheaper than Springer Custom. But I've been rambling on. I've seen some more comments and questions come in. Let's have a look, see. Don't use BB Kings. Yes, BB Kings are just shockingly bad. I rarely slate any brands. I always try to be on the fence and unbiased, but BB Kings suck. I have destroyed guns using them because they've swollen and jammed, even in the course of 72 hours. They are not good BBs. Did you use the Spenker arms? No, but I imagine they're again coming from the same factory. Maruzen BBs. Maruzen 29s, I think, were a legendary BB at the time. Kenny's in the house. Evening Sneaky Blinder, how are things? Robert Kender, what's the most underrated sniper rifle in your opinion? Well, for a while, it was the Striker. The Striker and the Vfc M40a3. And unfortunately, I'm going to get controversial here, and I know some fanboys are going to get upset, but a certain few people of influence decided that they didn't like these rifles, and because of the way they worked and had short cylinders, they weren't going to be great. And the Striker was that rifle. Loads of people, a few influential people, said that it's got a small short stroke cylinder, it's going to be crap, won't work, all this lot. For any of you that know, when I started my blog, the first thing I did was challenge that, and I built a rifle that shot 90 metres for less than 200 quid. I gave it to Kicking Mustang, he used it, did some videos, and it was hitting 90 metres. Very underrated rifle now. The market's absolutely saturated with parts for them. They're very, very good. And for the price, they're cheaper than a base VSR, in terms of if you're not going for a clone. Obviously the Striker isn't a clone rifle, it's a specific rifle built. There aren't clones of it, unlike the VSR where you have the TM, which is the standard rifle, and then you've got your clones like Wells, Cyma, HFZ, etc. So for me the Strikers are very much, it's gaining traction now. A lot of people are making good parts. Bespoke Airsoft have done some good parts. They've taken the short outer barrel idea that I came up with and made a physical product for it, which you can run G-spec barrels with, which compensates for the volume. They're not under-volumed, they're matched at that level, but the short just seems to work so much better. It's quieter, it's more efficient, you get a slightly better joule rating on heavier ammo than you would at the standard length barrel, and I think they're a great rifle. The Vfc M40a3, a lot of people steered away from it because of the way that the magazine's fed with that ramp. Again, if you go back to my blog when I started, my main go-to rifle at the time was the Vfc M40a3, pretty much upgraded with everything you could think of. And to this day, that's probably one of my best performing rifles. I did sell it recently, I can't remember who bought it off me. It may have been a guy called Jason. But very underrated rifles, expensive for a base gun, but the stock on them is brilliant. The hop unit works very, very well, and they're just great guns and pretty much take every VSR part except the cylinder head. Graham says, does that mean you need to alter the rifle since the slot must be further back? If you're talking about the bull trig, no. The spring guide stopper placement is exactly the same. It's the sear, so what catches the trigger, catches the piston, sorry, is marginally back, so you don't have to change anything. How did your experiment with a weighted piston go? Well, Anders, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to have to do some moving around here, but I've got my own piston that I've designed and I've had manufactured along with a spring guide. For reasons I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to show you what the part looks like, but it is my design that I have done, and I've worked with someone that I trust to build my prototype. And I've got it here in my TAC 300. A few people I've spoken to, I've sent some images to and some results. But essentially, I've got it set up, I've got my chrono here. I was prepared for this. So I've got my chrono here, which is set to 0.2s. And I've got my TAC 300 here with two BBs in it, 1.2 and then 1.45. So I'll do the 0.2 first to show you what the joules are. typical. Didn't bloody register. Well, Kiki Mustang sent an image of this, so he can confirm this. The piston that I've designed and used is on a 0.2, less than 0.8 joules. However, on a 5, so a 0.5, it goes up to 1.4 joules. Same setup, nothing has changed. So 0.2 is about 290 FPS, I think, and a 0.5 was 250. So huge dual creep, 61% dual creep, which isn't to be used for cheating, but in some rifles and some builds, to get the right joules on a 0.45 puts you over the limit on a 0.2. I built a rifle recently that was 530 FPS on a 0.2, but smack on 2.3 joules on a 0.45, which is the ammo they wanted to use. So for that reason, I thought of a piston that you could modify and do some cool things with. That didn't mean having to buy any extra parts. You could tune what you needed to tune just by having the piston. Yeah, typical. It didn't. Thought I had it set up and it didn't bloody work. But Smithy, James Bailey, Stephen Bayliss, of all some of the people I've been talking to and sharing my thoughts with on, and even the progress on the piston, because it literally turned up today. And yeah, it's an interesting design. And once I've changed a few things in the prototype, it will be available to purchase through my website and potentially some other retailers. What else have we got? Striker was a nice rifle, but hard to get parts. It used to be. There's loads and loads of parts available for the Striker now. Bespoke are doing some. A company called IHFI, I think that's how you pronounce it, IHFI, do some parts. Action Army have got some parts, and Errors, or Amoeba, sorry, themselves have got some. How did you solve the mag issue with the spring sticking and not feeding? What rifle? For Joshua, for your question, what rifle? The VFC. The front of the feeding plate. So you're cocking the rifle, you've got the feeding plate which goes forward up that ramp. Ever so slightly loosen the screws. Stock, so when you get the rifle they're too tight, and it basically pinches BBs. So loosen them and just keep tightening them back up until you find that it feeds perfectly. And on the front of the fin, and if you send me a PM, I'll send you the picture that I used for someone else of where you can sand the ramp so that you're pushing BBs up the ramp as opposed to pushing them into the ramp. So send me a message and we'll take it offline. James Brady says it's porn. I'm assuming you're talking about my piston and spring guide. Hi guys. Could the piston be modular? Almost. Well, you'll have to see, Graham. Right, Bailey is upset, so let me get a point to you quick. Right, so 0.2s, 0.45s, longbow, shameless plug there. At the moment it's for VSR, but I will be doing other pistons for other rifles. So let me just load this up. Right, so I'll do 2 shots with 0.2s, and then I'll do 2 shots with 4.5s. Breath running up those bloody stairs. Things I'll do for you, James. Right. Right, so that's set on 2s. Right, you will work this time. Nope. Shush dog. Ah, why is it not registering? If anyone knows a half decent chrono to get that isn't an X-Cortec 3200, please let me know. This thing has been a pain all day. And my dog's going mad. Why are you not working? Ah. No. Determined to get this to work for you guys now. Frustrating me to no end. Okay. Alright, so I forgot I swapped the spring out earlier. So that is 1.21 joules on a 0.2. Let's try 4.5. Right, and swap this back to 4.5s. Right, so 4.5s. It doesn't want to read. Be quiet, dog. Right, if it doesn't work on these two, I'm just going to go and do it offline and put some pictures up later. Doesn't want to read. No. So for some reason, my chronograph is deciding to constantly just say no. There we go. So that is now up to 1.49 joules from what was just over 1 joule earlier. And, as you heard, it is pretty quiet as well. I'm not sure why my chrono is being an absolute pain in the arse there. Unless the batteries are dying. Oh, there's going to be loads of stuff now. Where's the dog? She is sitting on the sofa giving me evils. Right, da, 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 da. Yes, the SRS is great. I have one sat here I've been working on, and I have another one coming. Don't cover with towel. Yeah, that could be it actually. But yeah, essentially, when I did some tests earlier, when it was not assembled just with the receiver, it was getting, yeah, 0.8, 0.7 or something. And I sent some pictures to a few people and said, oh, look at this, it's like pretty big dual creep. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, as and when I've got the final design done and tested, and I've got a few more things I want to test with it first, I will essentially make some for VSRs, Type 96 rifles, and the SRS as well. I've got something, as I mentioned earlier, already in the works with the SRS, which is a very good gun. I had one I was working on for Longbow BB, and then when the Gen 2 came out, I thought, actually, you know what, I'm just going to buy one for myself. It's all good and well doing work on a shop one, but at least if it's my own one, I can chop, change, and break stuff if that happens. So we're on the hour. That was pretty much what I wanted to cover off. Any questions from you guys? Anything you guys are interested in seeing? Any sort of preferences on next few videos? Something that would be really helpful if you guys haven't already is subscribe to my YouTube, which is, again, Sniper Mechanic. I'm going to start putting, as and when I do blog posts, I'm also going to start doing videos as well. I've done a few on the Tokyo Marui M40a3, which I've got, which is a really nice rifle. Not a huge fan of the stock. It's very, very plasticky. Certainly not the quality of the VFC one. When will I be releasing my piston? Probably not for a while yet. I've got to work out I've got to do some longevity tests with, obviously, how it performs in my rifle, what cylinders it does and doesn't work. But at the moment I've tested it with a few and I haven't found any issues. But I just know the Airsoft Pro one's going to be a pain just because it's a very small diameter compared to the stock cylinders, which are 23mm as opposed to 22 or 22.5. How to get a smooth bolt, I'm still keeping that to myself for the moment, just because that's kind of become my thing. I mean, there's no real secret to it. It is just time, patience, and knowing where the little niggly parts usually are. VSR, someone wanted to see that, didn't they? I'll go grab that. So this is the internally suppressed VSR that I run. Shameless plug to Kicking Mustang and Sniper Ops there. This is what I used over in France. I took my Tanaka, but the first day the weather wasn't great, so I thought I'd use this. But this is at 500 FPS. No, it's not going to bloody work now, is it? Oh, there you go. Really good, performed really well in France. I'm glad I took it with me. Tanaka performed well despite being dropped off cliff, or dropped down the side of a small incline, shall we say. But I think that's it for now, guys. How to quieten the rifle. Air brake piston's always a good one, good for dual creep as well. Fill every possible gap with foam and internally suppress it, which is something Kicking Mustang and I have both done. What was that rifle's stock cover? You mean this? Is that what you guys are asking? Yeah, James, those bloody cliffs. Testament to the snacker though. Obviously it fell off a cliff, came up and met with Mark and Paul, took a 90-metre shot. Oh, that is just a standard rifle pouch off of eBay that I've painted. And the rest of it is Pencott material that I got, with various leaves and raffia and stuff. Same sort of thing, same sort of thing that Kicking Mustang does. Not as good as his stuff, but it worked well. Mark, it's just I think they're like £8 off of eBay. Just a simple rifle stock with a pocket, little Velcro strip here for patches, and you get a little bullet holder as well. If you want to learn how to camo stuff, check out Kicking Mustang. He is master of all things ghillie and leaf suit related. Everything I've done is pretty much from watching his videos, looking at his content, looking at his pictures, and I've been lucky enough to game with him quite a few times now. Actually, me and him won the Sniper Ops event that I did with him. We came first when we did the ASG Ashbury giveaway. Yeah, look at videos, look at his pictures, talk to him as well. Like a really nice guy to talk to. He's an artist at it. He is really good at it. Like I do tech, he does ghillies. Like some people are just naturally good at things, or in my case, not naturally good, but certainly having to put the time in for it. We did well at that event. We sucked on the first day. Saturday was a mess. We forgot compasses. We couldn't find stuff because Mark had hung it in the wrong place. Right place, but hidden. Pipped me to the post stand. Just. Smithy got a nice headshot from me at the end of that. Yeah, as I said, Mark, he's a really nice guy. Always happy to chat. I know he's really busy at the moment, so if he doesn't get back to you, don't take it personally. But yeah, he's more than happy to take the time to talk to people. Funny enough, James, we've had a little 2-year anniversary on Facebook. Popped up my newsfeed the other day. It's gone quick. I don't think there's anything else that we can really chat about them now. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to. Yeah, keep an eye on my page, subscribe to my YouTube, and I try and do a few more on that. Yes, Paul, you do owe me. And to be fair, I am absolutely scared of your Mancraft, your VSR. Alex says I'm not getting the range I should. Can I pick your brain and face back? Of course you can. Yeah, just ping me a message either on the Sniper Mechanic page or my personal profile, and I'll always get back to you. Hey Jason, how are you? Lars, how do you make the smooth bolt pull? It's 50% choosing the right parts, and 50%, and I keep saying it, it's the same with anything. It is time and patience. Be prepared to take your rifle apart 50 times to get it right. And having a smooth bolt pull isn't a be-all and end-all, but if everything's smooth, then everything's meshing well. And if everything's meshing well, you're going to get the best out of them. You're not going to prematurely wear parts down. You're going to get the best seal. Not so much on the VSR because of the way it works, but if your bolt's wobbling all over the place and you're trying to rack that BB, you run the risk, certainly on the L96 rifles, they've got really sharp, narrow cylinder heads. You run the risk of clipping the BBs. So if you can have something that's perfect and straight and smooth, it's good for the operation of the rifle. And if you're doing an event like Sniper Ops, where any and all movement could be what determines whether you win or lose, you don't want a rifle where you're having to move a lot to try and cock it, especially if you're in the prone position. I mean, obviously, if you're prone and you've got a really tough bolt pull, it's really difficult to get the angle on it. Whereas if you can get it smooth, then you're going to just be able to slide it back and forward, giving absolutely nothing away. Your iPro does work well, Paul. It does. Hey, James Parker's on from Bespoke. How you doing, James? But going back to the bolt pull, obviously the benefit of having that smooth is, like, if you're tucked in somewhere, you land on your belly, you can literally just bring it up. You can either cock it like that, or just to show you how easy it is. That's it. You've not moved. You've not had to put your whole body behind it and sort of jank it back. You can literally just go pop, and you're off. And that's the benefit of the Tanakas as well, or any gas rifle is, on a gas rifle you've got just the weight of the bolt, there's no spring, there's no resistance, which is really good. I'm assuming you're talking to me, Jason, in which case, can't wait, looking forward to it. Yeah, I don't know what else to really chat about at the moment. I think I've answered everything everyone was asking. Yeah, one thing actually, and I don't know whether to do something for a giveaway if I get to a certain amount of likes and stuff. I've done it before, but what I didn't want to do is set an expectation where every time I get 100 likes, people are going to expect something from me. But at the same time, I think I've just broke 2,200 likes on Facebook, nearly 1,500 on Instagram, and a couple of hundred subscribers on YouTube. So yeah, I think at some point I'll speak to some retailers and some other YouTubers and stuff and see if I can sort something out for you guys. But yeah, otherwise I think we're probably done. I've been rambling on for well over an hour now. Mark is saying, I might have to chat to you at some point. I'm new to VSR and I want to make mine the best I can, so I'll message you. Yep, that's absolutely fine. As always, I will always do my best to answer questions and help people fix stuff sort of remotely. I obviously do builds, services, etc. I've just updated my site with the prices. So if you want something built, if you're not confident to do it yourself, I'm happy to do it for you. But at the same time, if you do want to do it yourself, obviously I've got loads of resources on my blog, and I'm always happy to help. I'd always rather help someone before charging them. If I ever do any work, it's just for my time. I charge parts at whatever the cheapest I can find them is, really. I remember when you were just down and now over 2,000. Yeah, less than... When did I start? I think I started the blog back in November. So it's less than a year. I think it's done okay. Hey, Hutchie, how are you? Knowledge is king. Yeah, it is. I think, obviously there are a lot of good texts out there, and there's a lot of resources out there as well in terms of being able to find your answers quickly. I mean, it used to be the forums, but the forums have really quietened down, and something me and James Bailey were talking about is the fact that Facebook has become so aggressive and unhelpful, and I think James refers to it as salty. And yeah, I've seen people ask, it's a question that's been asked 100 times, but that person hasn't asked it 100 times, so why some people get so much abuse for asking it is a simple question, but it's only simple if you know the answer. Things like, what's the difference between a 90 degree versus a 45 degree trigger? If you know that, brilliant, but don't forget at some point you didn't know that, and now someone else doesn't know it, so don't be a dick. Facebook has got really bad for just hammering people. You should be able to ask a question and get a sensible, non-troll answer. And I like to think I'm quite approachable. I get loads of messages at the moment, just simple like, how does this work? Like, how do I do this? Or I've started this, and I'm stuck. I think again, James Bailey's really good with stuff like that. So, and me and him have had a lot of chats about. It's all good and well having a million subscribers and all these followers and fanboys, but actually, will they go to the community and defend you if something goes wrong? Do they actually recommend you, and because they've used you and they've spoke to you and you've done something for them? Or have you just got this big network of people that follow you for the sake of following you and you actually have no engagement? And that's why I wanted to have these lives, so I can actually have these chats with you. I mean, I can't phone every single one of you, but what I can do is do a live and have one of these informal chats. Let's see, there's another question. Quick question. Custom SV98 stock and need to replace the stock trigger. So you've got... I'm assuming this is for you, Mark Murphy. I'm assuming you've already got a custom SV98 stock and you need to replace the stock trigger unit in my Maruzen L96. Any suggestions? Springer Custom Works does Type 96 triggers. I'm not sure of the price, €100 maybe? But yeah, speak to Pavel over at Springer Custom Works. He does the S trigger for the L96, and again, it's the best trigger you can put in my honest opinion. And I have used a lot of triggers from a lot of brands. and there's a reason why I keep going back, well, not even going back, just sticking with Springer Customs now. Another thing is, James says, appreciate these live streams, they're a great idea, looking forward to them each week. Yeah, I mean, hopefully the content won't get boring. I mean, there's a lot of questions, a lot of stuff out there, so I'm hoping I can keep it fresh and interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want to work on and share with you guys, and get input as well. I mean, if it gets to a point of where, and some of you know where this is coming from, if I ever get to a point where I've got the money or the influence to do something for the community, like a good part or a good rifle, then I would certainly be doing that for the community, as opposed to perhaps having a following and a presence and releasing a substandard product. I think if you've got there and you've got that influence, the people that you guys are the people that will get me there, same as fans of other people have got them there. I think it's good to remember where you started, where you got to where you are, and like with a community like ours, especially in the sort of the more sniping area as opposed to the wider airsoft group, there's a good little community going on. There's a lot of back and forth. I see a lot of activity in the groups and a lot of interaction. A few people are doing the live stuff now, like obviously James does his weekly lives, Bespoke do their vlogs, which are a great idea. Yeah, I really like what's happening in the community at the moment. I think it's really good. Airsoft's only getting more and more busy, more and more prominent, popular even, which is great. I think we need fresh blood. You've got so many older people that have been doing it that have this elitist attitude, when actually it's having new people come in. Like, good examples, people that you've never heard of a year ago that are now doing great things for the community. James Bailey, brilliant ghillie stuff. Steve Bayliss from Hadron Airsoft Designs. The TDC for the MK23, revolutionary idea. Like, just an outstanding product that takes an already amazing gun to the next level. I mean, Smithy's got his MK23 shooting 90 odd metres. It's absolutely brilliant, and we wouldn't have had that if we weren't a community, like, as I said, in the sniping area, that actually promotes being helpful and sharing ideas. The fact that Steve has brought this product to the market, which is cheap, you know, it's affordable, and it's a great part. You've got other people like Bespoke Airsoft who are doing their custom products. They do a lot of above and beyond services for customers. I had an AEG text by them and an LCT PP19, the Vinturez, I probably pronounce it. They got that for me. Did some great work on it. Not that I use my AEGs much, but it's still a very, very nice piece of kit. Yeah, they did it for a good price. They kept in contact, did it in a reasonable time. And I think it's great that we do have this community where people are trying to be helpful and share knowledge where possible. I think for too long people have just hoarded knowledge in the sense that they think it makes them better to know something more than someone else does. And I think actually it's sharing. Like, if you know something that someone else doesn't, I think you're almost obliged to help them. Like, why not? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Granted, obviously, sometimes you can have an idea and you might not get credit for it, or someone else recycles it, or someone copies it. I know there's been some issues with a few products where other people have tried to do it. But yeah, DTT, Double Tap Designs, I haven't got any of their products. I do need to get one of their holsters though, apparently they're really good. And the fact that 3D printing is another thing that's come in. Like, again, Hadron Airsoft done some amazing parts. I mean, I've just designed some 3D nubs for an M700. Years ago, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have even known it was possible. But no, managed to get something done, send it to Shapeways, got a few test ones back, and yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, the ghillie sniper community is brilliant. People are always happy to chat, share knowledge. Yeah, Phil. Yeah, I'm still waiting for Phil to make me a holster actually for my MK23. For my TM, my ASG crapped out. But yeah, I think there's just so much going on at the moment that we're in a really good space, and I think like the Sniper Ops event is something that I'm really interested in. Like, I've sort of piggybacked on it, and I hope James doesn't mind me prattling on about it. But Sniper Ops is brilliant. Still one of the best events I've done, and I think it's great. I think they're very welcoming, and I think we're looking for more and more people to join the events, and we're happy to travel. I mean, we went to France for a game. I think it's really. What was that? Yeah, no rush, Phil. I haven't got a game planned. Not until the next Sniper Ops, or maybe the thing at Battle Lakes I tagged James in. But yeah, I think there's so many cool people doing cool things. yeah, I think we just need to be a bit more welcoming. And for you guys that follow Sniper Ops and James and Sneaky Blinder and Smithy, like, don't be afraid to do a Sniper Ops event. Like, I jumped in at the deep end, went straight in and went, I'll do a 24-hour event. I've never done one that long. You've got these incredibly tough, strict rules around ammo and navigation, no electronics and things, and they are a hard event, but they're absolutely brilliant. If you do one, win or lose, just the experience itself will make you a better player. You just have to think so differently, and there's skills that you can transfer into regular mil sims and skirmishes. I mean, once you've done a few Sniper Ops and you do a normal skirmish, it's fish in a barrel. You're just so much more conscious of your surroundings and things. It's really great, and everyone's welcoming. I went there, and the only one I knew was James, and I got paired up with Phil the last time I went. I met Kenny through Sniper Ops. I met some of the other guys like Mark. All helpful, all welcoming. The social aspect of it is brilliant as well. So if you follow my stuff and you like the tech side of it, look at the Sniper Ops, the ghillie side of it. I mean, you're only as good as your skills. You can have the best rifle, and you can get taken out with someone with a pistol. I mean, at a Sniper Ops event, you'll see a lot of people, myself included, using MK23s more so than their sniper, purely because it's that style of how you play the game as opposed to what you play the game with. I met Smithy through my scope. Yeah, I think we bonded over that shot. Saying that, I think Phil met me through his. He spanked me a good one on the first game. Yeah, look at Naronak Airsoft on Instagram. He's done a cool PVC sort of handmade front release holster. Smithy's got one, and I've asked him to make me one. They're great. Oh yeah, and Paul spanked me out of my first game with my trigger happy MK23 shooting. What's Mark? Mark saying love the Striker. They're good rifles. I mean, you've upgraded the hell out of yours, and it performs really, really well. Pretty quiet as well, from what I remember. I know you used it a lot when we were in France. Right, guys. With that, I think I'm gonna call it a night. I might play some Destiny 2. I might ask Steve Bayliss if he wants to play with me on it. I need some friends to do raids with. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I think I might do a strip down and review of the K98. I know some people are interested in it. But otherwise, again, keep saying it, but if you could please... hi Wesley. Thanks for doing it. Yep, absolutely fine, James. Really enjoy doing it. I like talking to people. And again, if there's anything you want to ask me that I haven't covered in the stream, feel free to ping me a message. I can actually see on my laptop I've got many messages and notifications, so I'll try and get back to all of you tonight. But in the meantime, if you can, have a look at my blog. I put the France trip up on there. It's a long read. It's like 4,000 words or something ridiculous. But there's some great content on there. From Sneaky Blinder's got a cool little kill streak on there. James is kicking my saying he's going to give me some footage to put on there. Smithy's got some footage. There's some good pictures. But have a look. Have a look at the YouTube. There's only a few videos on there at the moment, but I'm going to try and do some more. Yeah, and yeah, just keep checking in. Ask me any questions, anything that you want to discuss. Just let me know. Otherwise, guys, have a good night. Absolute pleasure to talk to you all again. And yeah, as I said, please just subscribe, like, share. Sort of help me get the brand out there. And yeah, I'll think of something I can do in return for you guys. But have a great night, and I will speak to you all this time next week. Cheers, guys. Bye.